In today's video, I'm going to do a 350-hour, 3-year review on a Mahindra 1635 shuttle shift tractor with ag tires and remote hydraulics and a backhoe. I'm going to do the good, the bad, and the ugly. Those of you who have been with this channel for a while, you know that I've had this tractor since brand new, and I've had a couple issues with it, and I've also had some good experiences with it. So let's cut to the chase and let's talk about this tractor real quick. I also want to discuss whether or not I would ever buy another Mahindra tractor, and I'll tell you why I would or why I would not. So stick around. If you haven't already, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, make sure you like and give me some comments down below so I see where you're coming from and what your thoughts are on the subject matter. So I bought this tractor brand new in 2020, and I went and tried out a couple other tractors. This was the actual third Mahindra tractor that I bought. I initially bought a Mahindra 2538, which is a 35 horsepower hydrostatic tractor, and that had industrial tires on it, a loader, and a backhoe. I had a lot of troubles with that one. First, the dash, all the gauges went kerflooey and it was on and off, and the dealer came out to the house, changed out the dash, fixed it for nothing. Then I started having a lot of hydraulic issues. And when I started looking underneath, you could see where from the factory the hydraulic pipes had just been like gack welded. It was terrible looking. And I'm not a welder by any means, but I'm sure that I could do a better job than that. And my only welding experience is in shop class. So it was terrible. It was terrible. And I had leaks and all kinds of issues with it. And the industrial tires weren't really a good fit for me here on the farm. So I decided to cut my losses and traded it for another Mahindra, which was the Max that I've already given a review on. And the Max is made by Mitsubishi in Japan. And I think overall the Max is a really good tractor. And would I buy another Max? I think I would. I think the Max and the 1626, both made by Mitsubishi, are good Mahindra tractors. I haven't really heard any people with serious issues. It's just the common little things that would be typical of any tractor, like a hydraulic coupler or just something super minor that is usually covered under warranty, and the dealer almost always fixes it for nothing. So very minor issues, and the only issues I ever had with my Max was because I didn't tighten up the loader bolts enough. So I had one of the bolts, it actually just ruined the threads on it, and so I had to put a heliax in it, and then it was fine. But as far as the Mitsubishi tractors go, I have no issue recommending those whatsoever. But today I want to talk about this tractor. And the 16 series all has a frame, and the basic tractor is built by Mitsubishi, but the motor on this one and the 1640 are actually built by Mahindra. Now I don't get on Facebook or anything anymore. There's just too many opinions, and most of them are unfounded. As far as this tractor goes, the frame-wise, the running gear, all those things I haven't had any issues with those. And those are the Mitsubishi products. What I initially had trouble with was the joystick controller. I'll show you that here in a second. The second thing I had was some grounds going bad, and that's typical of Mahindras. And I think most tractor manufacturers, they don't put dielectric grease on any of the connections, so you get any kind of corrosion whatsoever, and then you start having issues like you don't get enough amperage going to the starter, or just maybe no juice whatsoever. The starter went on this, and they rebuilt it, and it didn't really solve the issue, so they traded it out and put a brand new starter in it, and knock on wood, it's been fine. I haven't had any issues with that since. So the bucket on this tractor is not really a true 5-foot bucket. It's one of these ones where they kind of angled it like this so you can get past the wheels when the wheels are extended all the way, so you can actually clear path for the wheels. And the bucket, some people say it's a little small. I haven't had an issue with the bucket. It does have reinforcements on the edges right here, which is good. And this right here is all C-channel, so this is reasonably solid. I've seen some people put angle iron and weld it on here and then hook the hooks on it. With my hook being right here, there's actually, when you feel under here, you can feel it's all solid. and so it's pretty solid right there. I haven't had any issues, and I've lifted a lot of heavy things with it, so I wouldn't worry about the bucket part of it. The actual bucket has been fine. I've seen some people hook some kind of like screen on here, and I can see why they do it. This right here can be kind of a little bit of a bear. You got to pull both of these out to tilt this forward to get to service anything in here. Actually, to open the hood, if you don't tilt this forward, you're not getting into the hood. It's not really an issue, but it's a little tricky to pull both of those spring pins if you don't keep them greased. I did break this piece of plastic right here when I was carrying a stump. It came back and part of the stump went through, so sure, putting some kind of thing on here may not be a bad idea. These are incandescent bulbs, so they're not the brightest. Some people will change them out for LEDs, but if you start putting all kinds of stuff in here, then you start losing your headlight ability. So it's kind of like, what do you want? What's your picture poison, right? So that's not really an issue for me. Some people will complain about the hydraulic hoses being rubber. Well, I can't bend steel. I don't have the capabilities here to bend steel, so if I need to replace any part of this, I can just go get a hydraulic hose. So I don't have an issue with hydraulic hoses instead of steel lines. Now the loader and backhoe, so what I'm told by the dealer is Mahindra has a couple of subs that build loaders and backhoes, so they may not always be the same manufacturer, so you kind of got to look at your decals and see where you got it. And he said generally if the tractor comes from the factory with a KMW loader, it probably has a KMW backhoe, but if you add the backhoe later like I did, then you may or may not get a KMW. I did, so they're built in Kansas. I think it's Kansas Machine Works or something like that. So the metal, like you'll see the Kubota guys being like, oh, it's chintzy metal. I haven't had any issues, and I've pushed a lot of stuff. I pushed stumps and rocks and a lot of things, and the key when you're using your loader is to push straight, not at an angle, and don't use it for a bulldozer. So when I say I've used it to push a lot of stuff, I've been very careful, straight on, and I don't exceed what I think are the limitations of a tractor. So one of the other things people will say is, I've never been sad or regretted the decision to buy the biggest tractor I possibly could. Well, okay, well that's not true, because if you look on Marketplace, you'll see tons and tons of tractors, Craigslist also, where people have this giant tractor and they say it's too big for their application. So there's tons and tons of proof that buying the biggest tractor that you can afford may not be the smartest idea. So honestly, my advice to you is write down what you're going to use your tractor for. You have a list of things that you know for sure you're going to use your tractor for, like you're going to do yard and garden maintenance, or you're going to have a small farm. I have a small farm, and I needed something that I could lift a round bale with safely, run a sickle bar mower, a tedder, a rake, carry things around in the bucket, the backhoe, and haul a trailer without worrying about it not being a big enough tractor. So I think this tractor right here is an ideal size tractor, and this is similar in size to the John Deere 3 Series, the 3Rs, and similar to the Kubota, like the L Series. So we're all on the same page as far as frame and size of tractor. I think this is a great size for a general application. Now, when tires are coming to play, people will love the industrial tires because they don't tear up their lawn and they have a little bit of tread on them. And the sidewalls are generally thicker on the industrial tires, so they don't bulge out, and you have less issues as far as flats, and you can carry more. The problem with the industrial tires is they're terrible for traction in mud and snow. You have to have chains in the snow, really. At least my experience has been chains, because what happens is the slushy wet snow fills all the cleats up, and then it just basically turns into racing slicks. And the same thing is true with mud with those R4 tires. So I'm not a huge fan of them for farming. They're okay for yard and garden because that's what you're using it for, but even snow removal, and I do have a lot of experience with industrial tires. My Max has it, and my other tractor had it, and being in the CBs, that's pretty much all they have. So R1 tires, people don't like them because they tear up their lawns or whatever, but Honestly, I haven't torn my lawn up with it, and you just don't turn on it, and you don't keep driving back and forth on it. If you drive back and forth with R4s, you're going to tear it up too. So I don't have any issue with these, and I really like them. Especially on this model, and some other manufacturers do and some don't. Some have a one-piece rim, and some like this one and my John Deere have adjustable rims, so you can go side to side and you can get, you know, an extra couple feet almost of clearance. I have these tractor tires out as far as they can go. You can see where the rim attaches to the wheel. It's set in, so if you were to reverse these wheels side to side, it would narrow it back up again. But we're looking at about 6-foot span here, and these tires are loaded with rim guard, which is beet juice. And I chose that for a couple reasons. One is that it's heavier than windshield washer fluid, it's heavier than water, it's biodegradable, and also it doesn't rot out your rims like calcium. So up here in Maine, even though windshield washer fluid probably wouldn't freeze, it doesn't have the weight that rim guard does. People have had a lot of issues with these flex links. Initially I figured, you know, I'm not pushing backwards, I'm not backblading, I'm not box blading, I'm not pushing with the tractor, I'm only pulling. So what happened pretty quickly is this part right here bent. It just makes a real mess, and that happened running a sickle bar mower. It just the weight of the sickle bar mower and the way the bar was tracking, it bent it and broke it. Now you can buy a replacement, the whole deal like this right here is, and just a note, the 7000 series Cub Cadets of about 20 years ago, essentially the same tractor built by Mitsubishi, and that was one of the reasons I bought this tractor, because I had prior experience with the Cub Cadet tractors, the 7000 series specifically, built by Mitsubishi, and they were and remain very reliable tractors, but parts obviously a little difficult to get now because Cub Cadet no longer carries them. Mahindra took them over for a while, so if you have one of those Cub Cadet 7000 series tractors, Mahindra took them over and painted them red, so you may be able to get the parts you need from Mahindra. Now this right here is what I'd call some sort of pot metal. You can buy a replacement, this part right here, which is kind of like a C with a bar on it that has been upgraded. It's more of a heavy metal, and you can get this part right here also upgraded. So you're looking at about $250 to replace a set of these, so that's where I'm at. I spent $250, got a replacement set so I can start at square one again, and then I also got the upgraded parts here, so in the event that it fails, I'm not going to be in a position where I have to go find old turnbuckles and chains and try to put this back together. And with the sickle bar mower, it's really important that I have the ability to put this and fix it where I want it. So I don't really like it very much. I like the design. The John Deere has them, and it's way more rugged, but they really cheaped out on these, so not a huge fan. The balls here on lower draft links is just one point where it's welded on, whereas the John Deeres have this part comes out and then this part, so the pin goes through it like a clevis, and then you don't have just this one part here that can bend or break. So I haven't had any issues because I don't beat on my tractor, but I could see where somebody somewhere might have an issue with that. And this right here is all the extra framing for the backhoe, which I do like the way the backhoes go on now. They're really simple. There's no subframe. It's just a tilt end. It just sets in a cradle, and you put these pins in. I've got a couple videos on adding and removing the backhoe on this tractor. It couldn't be simpler, and I don't have any issue with putting the backhoe on. The backhoe for this tractor is silky smooth. The controls are great. There's no jerky motions. But the seat on this tractor does not have any, as I mentioned, there's no suspension on it. And when you get the backhoe, you also lose the ability to tilt the seat forward to keep the water off it. It doesn't work anymore. You've got a couple levers here. The seat raises up and then turns and faces the back. And it's, after you get used to it, it doesn't take a whole lot of work to switch the seat around. But again, it's all in preference. If you're a big guy and you have the seat on the backhoe, I can see where that might be an issue. But also, this right here is not an ideal situation either. So I don't really have an opinion one way or the other. But since I'm not a huge guy, I would rather have the seat separately attached to the backhoe. It would just make my life simpler. That way when I'm repositioning, I can, you know, I don't have to flip the seat around or just either stand up one way or the other. It has what they call this M Comfort seat, and the seat itself is pretty good. I like the armrests, but if you notice there's no suspension here. There's nothing. It's cushion, but there's no give. So it depends on. It's just not comfortable. It's not super comfortable, and the angle of the seat feels like you pushed a little forward. So after having driven this for 350 hours, I don't care for the seat very much. It's not that great. So a few things that I like about this tractor. This right here is standard, and it keeps a lot of the mud and debris from coming back and getting on you. And I don't know of a whole lot of other manufacturers that put these on, and so they're just plexiglass. But I haven't had any issue with breaking it or hitting anything. But for sure, it's handy to have. And one thing that these tractors have that really is impressive is that even without the backhoe, they came with a full-length frame on the loader. So it's mounted here, and there's quite a few bolts, and it's about this big hooked onto the chassis here. But in addition, you've got a whole another big rectangle into there of L channel. It's about it varies in length or in width from about 6 inches to 5 inches, just depending upon where it's going. In some places, it's more reinforced. But overall, very impressive. This tractor comes with a complete bracing system underneath the tractor for the loader, so you're not really going to rack the frame too much by doing that. People get into issues with, like I said, when they start pushing at angles or they start pushing into stuff that they shouldn't be. So if you're pushing into something and you're breaking traction, or your front end's coming up off the ground because you're pushing, that's probably a good time to stop pushing. Fuel fill up here. I have a bulk tank, so I have a separate nozzle to fuel it. It's not an issue for me. But if you're carrying 5-gallon containers or whatever, climbing up there and balancing to fuel up, it's not that fun. I like the fuel tanks that sometimes now you're seeing them down. You're seeing them down here, or you're seeing them on the back of the tractor. So either way, those are both places I like. These are plastic fenders, and my Kubota, same thing. It had a metal hood, but plastic fenders, and it wasn't very long before I had caught a stick or something bush hogging, and it came up and it pretty much demolished this whole back end of my Kubota. So again, I don't see an advantage to the plastic or the steel one way or the other. It just depends on, are you leaving it out in the sun? I don't leave my stuff outside because the plastic will certainly deteriorate after a while of being out in the sun, but I don't leave it out. So like I said, it's hard to find a tractor now that doesn't have plastic on it. You'd be able to push the clutch in and come to a stop, and it should slide right into forward or reverse. It doesn't. It goes into forward usually pretty easily, but you kind of have to double clutch to put it in reverse. And the shuttle shift on this tractor is a little misleading. So you can go, let's say you're in low range or high range, you can not power shift it, but you can drive it like a standard shift automobile. So you can be in a gear, hit the throttle, let the throttle off, clutch, change gears, all the way up. So upshifting, not an issue. You can't downshift with it because you'll grind the gears. So I wouldn't say it's a true synchronized manual transmission, because yeah, in whatever range you're in, you can go up, but you can't come back down, and you certainly can't change ranges while you're driving, and you can't go from forward to reverse while the tractor's moving. You'll grind. It doesn't work. So don't do that. The other issue is if you shift too fast, there's a fork on here that gets stuck. So if you're trying to power shift it, and you're shifting gears really quickly, that comes unhooked, and you can fix it with a crowbar pretty quickly. And I've only done that once, and it's because it was icy, it was snowing out, and I actually tripped and I grabbed it and it messed it up. So kind of strange, but that's the only time that's happened to me. Some people say it happens a lot. I don't like the placement of this lever here, because if you're in first or third, and sometimes even up here when you get off, your coat tail will get stuck on it, and then you're kind of like stuck. So I don't like it. And the clutch is a single stage clutch, so it's not what you call a live power. It's an independent power takeoff. So pushing the clutch in has no bearing on the PTO. The PTO is independent, so you've got an on-off here that the tractor has to have the clutch pushed in and be in neutral in order to use. And then you have a button on the other side, so you can engage and disengage the PTO while the tractor is going, but if you engage it over there and then disengage it over there without disengaging this one, the safety switches will prohibit you from restarting the tractor. So it's kind of a pain sometimes with the two different PTO engagements. Power steering is good. Tilt wheel. This right here hasn't been a problem on this tractor, but with my Max I keep bumping it and I've broken this little tab off right here. The gauges are pretty good. It's got the standard tachometer, oil pressure, temperature, fuel gauge, and then a bunch of idiot lights that are described in the manual, so no real issue there. This is all plastic, as are most of them. Metal hood, which some people like, some people hate. My brother just dented his 1626 hood, and now it's going to be, you'll never get it perfect again. So I have no real preference one way or the other. So steel or fiberglass, whatever, they both have their pros and cons. So I'm oriented into the sun, so I apologize that this is kind of facing the wrong way. So your shuttle's here, your clutch, here's your lights, right here your horn, which most tractors I've noticed don't come with a horn. Over here you've got your starter, your preheat, and then your gauges up here. Down here you've got your tilt wheel and your parking brake, independent brakes, and foot throttle, which is what I use most of the time unless I'm running something that needs to have it set at 540, but just tooling around I usually use the foot throttle. So here's your joystick for your loader, and some people have third functions. I'm told there's a diverter down underneath there for the third function, and all you have to do is just change out this part to get third function. Your throttle's here. You've also got a throttle on the floor. This right here is your 3-point hitch, remote valve. Up here you've got a power point that you can plug whatever into, cell phone holder, cup holder, and everything's tucked in pretty good. The lights are in there pretty well, so fortunately I haven't had any issues with anything up here. Four-wheel drive engagement right there. Here's your check for your hydraulic fluid. There's your rate of drop valve, and then you've got all your seat adjustments. I just did a video on couplers, and the dealer said it just depends on who you have for a loader and what they had on the shelf when they built it for what you would have for couplers. Now these are Boss, meaning they have a little gasket or O-ring on the male end, and everything's different. It's not a standard 3/8 coupling like a Pioneer style, so it's Boss, and it's a little awkward, but I've learned there's a lot of different things, hydraulics, that I didn't know about before. All my old farm mills just have steel pipe, so learning experience for me on the Pioneer and the Boss and Jick and all the stuff, so be cognizant of that. I've never seen something like this on another tractor. John Deere has it all tucked up in behind. You have to take the wheel and fender off really to do much work with your hydraulics, so I can see from a maintenance standpoint this would be more accessible. However, the problem with it is you get all this stuff going on here, and again, it's all just rubber hoses, so if you have an issue with it you can just change it out, but it just looks like a recipe for disaster. All your maintenance points on this tractor without removing the hood or opening the hood. You can check the oil, you can check the hydraulics. You can't obviously service the battery or the air filter, but you can certainly check the oil and your hydraulic fluid without doing too much. On this tractor, I have not had any issue with hydraulic functions. It picks up whatever I want it to pick up. Here's my remote couplers here, and then here's my Power Beyond. So they're not the same. The remote couplers has a valve on the tractor, so they're remoting the hydraulics, whereas Power Beyond just puts the hydraulics back here, and then you have to have another implement with a valve on it, like a wood splitter or the backhoe. The toolboxes that come on these tractors are garbage. They're just plastic, and it's essentially the same one that I've seen on the Kubotas. It's the same one that was on the Kubota that I had. It's just a plastic with a plastic hinge and a plastic snap that eventually is going to fail. This came off one of my old farmall tractors, and I just clamped it to the ROPS. And I've seen a lot of people do a lot of clever things for toolboxes with ammo cans and all kinds of things. So that it's not really an issue, but just be aware that the toolbox that comes with these tractors is garbage. The ROPS has to support the weight of the tractor, but after parking it next to the John Deere, this ROPS is considerably smaller. Now, extra lighting, the tractors come standard with the headlights. There's no work lights or forward-facing lights or anything. So I bought these aux beams, and I hooked these up myself. There's no really good option from Mahindra for extra lights, so you're kind of on your own or at the dealer's discretion of what he can put on for you or she can put on for you. It's not a big deal to add lights, so just as a note, you have to come up with a plan for lights if you want them. You can't just buy something off the shelf. I've heard of a lot of dealerships that are not very supportive of Mahindra customers, and I think they just kind of like take it on as like added value to something else they're selling. Maybe they're a small engine shop and they take on Mahindra tractors, but to my knowledge, Mahindra doesn't factory train their technicians. I don't know how they're trained, but I actually asked the guy that worked on this last, and he said they don't have schools. So I don't know. Maybe they have service bulletins or computer-based training or something, but they don't actually have factory-trained technicians at the dealership, to my knowledge, whereas John Deere and Kubota do. So Mahindra parts are really pricey, and those of you who have bought Mahindra parts, they're astronomical, they're crazy. So at some point it feels like the savings you got maybe by buying the tractor instead of a John Deere or Kubota or whatever may be a moot point because the parts are so expensive. Fortunately, I haven't needed too many parts, and those that I did need, the dealer supplied them for me. But I could see that being an issue later on down the road. I've heard people spending like literally like $2,000 for hydraulic pumps and $800 for starters. The list goes on with ridiculous amounts of money that people have to pay for parts. So the Mitsubishi Mahindra tractors, I stand by my previous statement that I think they're good tractors. I don't know of anybody who has the 1626 or the Max 26 made by Mitsubishi that had really any issues, and if they do, it's really an anomaly. It's not typical. This tractor, the 16 series, I think is more reliable than the 2000 series, the 2526 made by TYM. So I have never owned a TYM, but I've experienced the TYM Mahindra, and I know of a couple other people who have TYM Mahindras, and I would not recommend them. So if TYM is building their own tractors as poorly as they're building Mahindras, that's a deterrent for me. I would never buy a TYM now because I would think that they would build better tractors regardless. But so you wouldn't catch me with a TYM tractor with a 10-foot pole. The 16 series, the Max, I think they're okay. But just the parts prices alone, and it feels like Mahindra, as a rule, has more problems than, say, Kubota or John Deere or New Holland. And I think a lot of the New Hollands are made by LS, and I don't know a lot about LS. I just know it's, like John Deere and Yanmar used to. So is it the same kind of deal? I don't know. I know LS is in South Korea. Yanmar is in Japan, and John Deere is building a lot of their own stuff in Georgia now. So now, fortunately, my dealership has been stellar. They've been really great. I don't have any issues with them. They've really done whatever it took to take care of me and this tractor. Now, they service this tractor whenever it's due for its periodic maintenance, oil changes, hydraulic, whatever it needs at the service interval. It goes back to the dealer, and yeah, you can spend $500 to $800 to have them do it. My theory behind that is while the tractor's under warranty, if the dealership is doing all the work on it, if there's an issue, the dealership tends to have all the paperwork and the proof that the periodic maintenance was done. So they can't say, well, you put some inferior oil in it or some inferior hydraulic filter or oil filter. Yeah, there's a warranty, but my experience is that manufacturers hate to warranty things out of their own pocket. So You may save a few dollars on the oil filter, you may save a few dollars on some hydraulic fluid, but you're really throwing the dice for the amount of money you spend on the tractor. You need to cut corners to buy hydraulic fluid for it. And that's just my opinion. You can do what you want, it's your tractor. But my advice is, while the tractor's under warranty, have the dealer do the maintenance on it. If it's a good dealership. If they're idiots, then I guess it doesn't matter. Or if the dealer is 4 hours away, that doesn't make any sense either. My dealer's 10 minutes away, so it makes perfect sense for me. Honestly, one of the reasons I bought the Mahindras in the first place was because I'd bought some Polaris and some other things from the dealership, chainsaws, and they were good people, and we've been going there for as long as I can remember. My dad used to go there. So it's close by, and that's why I bought a Mahindra. It did what I wanted it to do. Would I buy these again? Well, that's a good question. I don't think so. And I know that I've said I would before, but that was then, this is now. And some of the reasons are the parts are hella expensive. They're not factory trained technicians. Mahindra, seems like their customer service isn't that great. And it's a crapshoot with the dealership whether they're good or not. And I guess that follows with any dealership, but in my case in particular, the dealership's been great, but I've seen people who the dealerships are just gone, and then they're left high and dry. And I think that I would probably not buy one again. And it's got nothing to do with the dealership. It's purely the quality of the tractor and the parts and the support offered by Mahindra. So if you're listening, Mahindra, I think you need to step that up and do something about it, because there's a lot of people that are going to eclipse you. Like TYM is really putting up their game to advertise and have small YouTubers try out their equipment, and I'm not saying I want it, but I'm just saying that's what they do. But the John Deere I have, John Deere 3R, which I will do another video on shortly, actually I paid less for this tractor. It was 6 years old with 380 hours. It was maintained by the dealership. I paid less for that tractor with the loader and the iMatch and the canopy than I did for this tractor right here with just the bucket. So I bought this one brand new, bought that one used for less money. So I think, so if we go back to my initial statement of the tractor, do a pros and cons list of what you're going to use the tractor for, the space you have, like you got to put it somewhere and you have to use it somewhere, so you don't want this behemoth of a tractor that you can't use. But so the advice of buy the biggest one you possibly can afford may not be the best advice. I would say buy the tractor that best suits your needs with a little bit of room for growth. And the money you would save, you could buy a couple of attachments with it. So don't buy something you can't put in your garage or your shed, and then you can't drive on your lawn with it because it's so big, or you can't get through your gates because it's so big. So it's really important that you buy the tractor that fits your needs, not the biggest one that you can get. I would encourage you to visit all the dealers and try every tractor that you're interested in, and kind of get the temperature, so to speak, of the dealership. Are they nice? Are they helpful? Ask some people who shop there how they've been treated. I don't know. There's a lot of ways that you can find out about the dealership without, just buying something and then hoping they treat you okay. And will the dealership or will the manufacturer be there in 10 years? Well, anybody. The Kubota dealer I know, he told me, I worry that they'll pull my dealership for whatever reason. He's just a single mom and pop dealership, and he said, the conglomerates are all buying up everything, and they may just tell him he's done. So I would say, try it out, check out the dealership, and then look at price. And then if these two things right here are great, but the price on a new one is too much, then check out the used ones, because the used tractor market is really hot right now. And what happened is everybody and her sister during COVID went out and bought a tractor, and they put 25 hours on it, and now they don't need it anymore. The caveat to buying, let's say, a third-party tractor off Craigslist or whatever is who owns the note on that tractor. Does the bank own it? Do you own it? Because what you don't want to do is go buy a tractor from Joe Schmo, who bought a tractor and financed it through Kubota, never paid off Kubota, so he still has a lien. Kubota still has a lien on the tractor, and then he sells it to you and he pockets the money, doesn't pay off Kubota, and then you bring your tractor in for service and Kubota's like, oh, that's my tractor, it was never paid for, so you're screwed. So fortunately the dealership, the John Deere dealer, gave me a really good deal. He said, what are you looking for? And I told him exactly what I wanted for a tractor and what I was going to use it for, and he said, give me a couple weeks, I'll find you one. So I wasn't in a hurry, and he called me in and said, there's one 2 hours away, it looks pretty good, it's been serviced by the dealership, and this is what we want to get for it. And he said they'd deliver it for nothing. So that's what I got, and I've been very happy with this John Deere tractor. So again, I'll do a review on the John Deere soon, but again, I don't think I'd ever buy another Mahindra for the reasons that I told you. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'm sorry it's a little lengthy, but there was a lot of information I really wanted to get out, and I hope that it's been helpful to you. So please, if you haven't, take a moment, hit subscribe, like the video, and comment on your tractor, your process of buying the tractor, your advice on tractors, and I hope that I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.